On her final voyage, Old Ironsides, trim and proud, moved majestically into New York Harbor on August 29, 1931. Launched in 1797, her faded log, yellowed with age, was a record of long and heroic service. Though her hull bore the scars of many battles, she had never known defeat. And in our history, no ship ever fired the imagination of Americans like the frigate Constitution, whose sturdy side shielded and protected a young and struggling nation in the dark, uncertain days following the Revolution. Retired in 1881 after 84 years of active service, Old Ironsides had just been rebuilt and restored as she sailed by the Statue of Liberty a quarter of a century ago on a 22,000-mile farewell journey. American schoolchildren had contributed their pennies by the millions to save the gallant old ship, which brought glory to her name and honor to her country. Today, berthed in the placid waters at the Boston Navy Yard, the Eagle of the Sea is as seaworthy as when she was built. Unconquered by hostile shot and shell, Old Ironsides has waged her hardest battle against the ravages of time. Repairs have been made regularly through the years, preserving the original Constitution, now nearing her 160th birthday. Workmen are busy replacing deck timbers on the 2,200-ton ship, whose hull is little more than 200 feet long. Built and outfitted for $300,000, her first spikes were supplied by Paul Revere. Old Ironsides' 54 cannon are silent, but 40 crewmen walk her deck. Mounting the gangway, they salute like the sailors in her days of glory. Keeping the frigate shipshape, today's crew remembers her first great sea victory, clearing the American coast of French privateers in 1798. A half-century later, she was to carry Old Glory around the world on her longest cruise. Below deck are the tight quarters shared by Old Ironsides' original crew of 475 men and boys. It's low bridge for the taller sailors of today. Here can be found the heavy guns, ammunition, and, to prevent sparks, the leather powder buckets. Early 19th century cannon shot included this chain and star spreader, a four-pronged weapon which, when fired, opened like an umbrella to rip the sails and rigging of enemy ships. This grape shot sprayed like shrapnel, and these 24-pound cannonballs helped Old Ironsides to a succession of famous victories against the British Navy in the War of 1812. A salt pork cask recalls that the Constitution carried provisions for 6 months at sea. Though her rigging is bare, she still sails securely into the hearts of visitors who come by the thousands to see and marvel at this living link with the colorful age of wind-driven warships. One of America's first fighting craft, she played a leading role in establishing our freedom on the seas. All the fittings are authentic, recapturing the spirit of that memorable day when, using this capstan, the Constitution first weighed anchor. Emphasizing again the ship's cramped cabin quarters, here is the warrant officer's mess, its table set with original pewterware. In the captain's cabin in 1805, America dictated peace without tribute to the Barbary pirates at this very table. Old Ironsides' guns in the background had bombarded the forts of Tripoli into surrender. The Constitution is secure at her birth, yet in 1830, condemned as unseaworthy, she would have been broken up except for a poem that aroused the nation, Oliver Wendell Holmes' Old Ironsides. I tear her tattered ensign down, long has it waved on high, and many an eye has danced to see that banner in the sky. Beneath it rung the battle shout and burst the cannon's roar. The meteor of the ocean air shall sweep the clouds no more. Her deck once red with heroes' blood, where knelt the vanquished foe, when winds were hurrying o'er the flood and waves were white below, no more shall feel the victor's tread or know the conquered knee. The harpies of the shore shall pluck the eagle of the sea. Oh, better that her shattered hulk should sink beneath the wave. Her thunders shook the mighty deep, and there should be her grave. Nailed to the mast her holy flag, set every threadbare sail, and give her to the god of storms, the lightning and the gale.
Decades of the 19th century, friction developed with Spain, whose once great colonial empire in America had been reduced by revolution to 2 islands, Puerto Rico and Cuba, less than 100 miles from Florida. And on the night of February 15th, 1898, came the spark that touched off the war. Battleship Maine was blown up in Havana Harbor. 260 sailors died. An angered public demanded immediate intervention in Cuba.
This time to the cries of "Remember the Maine."
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. College joys, we sail at break of day. Through our last night on shore, sing to the home. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. heave ho, and there's sail, for we're going to sail at break of day. Sing away, for we sail at break of day. Hey! Lean on America, Yankees away. Let freedom's anvils ring, we'll forge a glorious day. Steel piled on steel, my boys, gun after gun. Speed on America, we'll stick until the victory is won. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joy, we sail at break of day. Our last night on shore, sing to the foe, until we meet once more. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home. Anchors away,
A new United States man of war makes a trial run before joining the fleet. 41,000 tons of fighting ship, she's the fastest, most powerful battleship afloat. The bugle sounds general quarters, and 2,000 trained men go to battle stations to test the big guns. Powerful 16-inch rifles swing towards the target. Observers, hooded and dressed for below zero cold, are at their posts. America's greatest, the mightiest dreadnought ever built, is going into action.
Five million New Yorkers turn out to celebrate Navy Day and cheer President Truman as he passes up Fifth Avenue en route to review the greatest armada of fighting ships ever assembled. Strung out for miles at anchorage in the Hudson River, the fleet thrills vast crowds of spectators thronging Riverside Drive. Here are veterans of historic naval actions, their crews saluting as the President's ship passes. And carrier planes fill the skies overhead. 21 guns from every ship in the fleet is the presidential salute. And there's the great battleship Missouri firing. This is the majestic climax to Allied victory on the seven seas. Battle veterans of the mighty naval forces are home at last from the Atlantic, the Pacific, and all the far-flung fighting areas of the greatest war in history.
Seven 700 miles away from the U.S. garrison on Hokkaido, the battleship Wisconsin and the cruiser Manchester go into action in an area where the Cold War has become a shooting war. They're on their way through heavy seas to blast communist supply lines in Korea, to keep the enemy from building up strength during peace talks. Missouri, 53,000-ton flagship of Admiral Halsey's Third Fleet, becomes the scene of an unforgettable ceremony marking the complete and formal surrender of Japan. In the Bay of Tokyo itself, the United States destroyer Buchanan comes alongside, bringing representatives of the Allied powers to witness the final capitulation. General of the Army Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Allied Commander for the occupation of Japan, boards the Missouri. Fleet Admiral Nimitz, Pacific Fleet Commander, and Admiral Halsey welcome MacArthur and his Chief of Staff, General Sutherland, aboard. Admiral Nimitz escorts General MacArthur to the Missouri's veranda deck, where the 20-minute ceremony is to take place. It is Sunday, September 2nd, 1945. Cameramen and reporters of many countries record this historic moment as United Nations military leaders crowd aboard the Missouri and examine souvenir cards bearing the Japanese flag, special mementos of the occasion. And now, in a Navy launch, the Japanese surrender party arrives. They are headed by Agent Mamoru Shigemitsu, Foreign Minister of the Japanese Surrender Cabinet, who was wounded by a Korean patriot in Shanghai years ago and walks on an artificial leg. The Japanese delegation lines up on the opposite side of the surrender table from the Allies. A war which had entered its 8th terrible year in China, which had raged for 3 years and 9 months for America and Britain, which was the brutal, costly eastern half of the most horrible worldwide war in human history, is now within minutes of ending for good. General MacArthur speaks.
We are gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored. The issues involving divergent ideals and ideologies have been determined on the battlefields of the world, and hence are not for our discussion or debate. The terms and conditions upon which surrender of the Japanese imperial forces is here to be given and accepted are contained in the instrument of surrender now before you. As Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers, I announce it my firm purpose, in the tradition of the countries I represent, to proceed in the discharge of my responsibilities with justice and tolerance, while taking all necessary dispositions to ensure that the terms of surrender are fully, promptly, and faithfully complied with. I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
Mr. Shigemitsu comes to the surrender table. These dramatic first pictures were made by newsreel war correspondents and Army and Navy cameramen and were specially flown back from Tokyo. The time is 9:05 a.m. The Japanese have been on board exactly 10 minutes. General Yoshijiro Umetsu of the Imperial General Staff signs for the Japanese Army. The surrender documents by which Japan agrees to lay down arms completely and to obey all Allied orders issued by General MacArthur were printed by the Army on rare parchment found in a basement in ravaged Manila. General MacArthur signs as Supreme Allied Commander. The first pen used is presented to General Wainwright of Corregidor. The second pen to British General Percival, commander at the surrender of Singapore. MacArthur uses 6 pens in all, affixing what will be the most important signature in Japan to the document that ends permanently that nation's regime of terror and aggression. For the forces of the United States itself, Admiral Chester Nimitz signs. Behind Nimitz are the Third Fleet's Admiral Halsey and Admiral Sherman, famed amphibious commander. General Su Young Chang, Chief of Military Operations for the Chinese National Council, signs for China. Admiral Sir Bruce Fraser, commander of the British Pacific Fleet for the United Kingdom. Lieutenant General Kumza Nikolaevich Derevyanko for Soviet Russia. General Sir Thomas Blamey for Australia. Colonel Lawrence Moore Cosgrave for Canada. General Jacques Leclerc, hero of Africa and Paris, for France. Admiral C.E.L. Helfrich for the Netherlands. Air Vice Marshal L.M. Issett for New Zealand. Concluding the brief history-making ceremony, General MacArthur expresses a wish.
Let us pray that peace be now restored to the world, and that God will preserve it always. These proceedings are closed.
Swarms of United States aircraft fly in formation overhead as the ceremony ends. The final United Nations victory has been won. The war is over. Peace is here.